What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we are giving you a state of the market and stock picks for March 15th, 2022. If that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing because I do give daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day in the week ahead. So let's go ahead and get into the state of the market. Now, we all know, even since my last update, my weekly update, there's been some other concerns that have come up. So in this perfect storm that we currently have, China has started going on lockdown, seeing as they have essentially zero tolerance for any new viruses that are spreading. And over the weekend, they started doing some lockdowns. So we opened up this morning. We looked strong. Candle wise, we looked very strong this morning. We actually pumped back up from the sell on Friday. So you can really just say that was a bounce. But ultimately, there is more and more constraint on the supply chain considering what is going on in China. Now, China does have a lot of exports, so you got to keep that in mind, plus all the sanctions that are going on. So you have a lot of issues going on with supply chains, and you have inflation, and you have Fed on Wednesday. So where does this leave us? Is this going to cause the Fed to not take any action? I think the Fed at some point, at this particular point, have to take some action. I believe they will stop bond buying. I believe they will come in with a 25-point basis move. Being said, that could bring a small rally into the market. But you still have to consider that Russia and Ukraine is still currently going on. There's a lot of speculation about what China's doing, if China's going to side with Russia. There were rumors that Russia reached out to China. China essentially disregarded those rumors, also did Russia. And then you have China fighter jets flying over Taiwan, which is another concern, which could lead to essentially more issues and essentially pull us into a war. And so we have to be mindful of these things. There is a lot of what if case scenarios going on here. And yes, it is all very bearish. Everything that is going on is very bearish. The one thing that could pull everything out, pull us all out of this, is if there was a ceasefire. Also, I do believe that we're going to have to come in lower on the rate raises. And I think if we come in at 25 and stop the bond buying, that would pretty much be close to expected. That would be, like I said, a little bit of a bullish catalyst. But if we can get a ceasefire, that would cause almost a parabolic move within a day or two. I don't know if we'd go back to all-time highs, considering that even if everything was called off and the Russia-Ukraine war stopped today, there's still a lot of sanctions in place. There's still a lot of damage done to the supply chain. And again, China is on lockdown. So being said, the state of the market is, again, extremely volatile. But what you're seeing is gold isn't holding. Crypto is actually holding very well during this period. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that, this is probably really going to be the year or years for crypto. Crypto might become more dominant. Who knows? Especially with inflation going on. That's why essentially the Bitcoin was created. And now being said, where are we going to continue from here? Right now, we have to keep our view short. Right now, we need to look at the Fed. The Fed on Wednesday, they're going to have their meeting conclusion at 2 o'clock, and then you're going to get to Powell at 2:30. So you're going to get an initial move at 2 o'clock, and then you're going to get essentially market reaction at 2:30 with Powell speaking. He's going to field questions, and those questions is going to move the market. So from that point, if we get at 2 o'clock, if we get numbers, the market is going to start freaking out. And now if the Fed come in really hawkish, that might actually be bullish in itself. But because of the fact that people are aware that there is a lot of inflation and something needs to happen before it gets way too carried away. So again, the market is going to react different than the actual economy at times. So you have to be mindful of that. It's not always connected. Even though when first coming into this whole situation with the possibility of a war, again, there's a lot of times it was almost a possibility of a war and it didn't play out. This is different, and so you have to realize that this has gone that extra step. And so now you're starting to affect supply chains. Now you're going to see that in earnings, all the future earnings for the next couple months and possibly years, on how much this is going to really affect everything, and how much supply chain is a big issue when it comes to the stock market, because that's how you're going to make your profits. And so you need to be mindful of these things and how it's being affected. So SPX, we're still in the downward wedge. We are holding that 4150 mark. It's a really key support. We also have the 4100 mark as well. So we really want to watch this level, especially coming into Wednesday. I don't know if we're going to break this support. It's a pretty strong support. I won't actually be surprised if this thing actually starts winding pretty tight in this wedge here. Coming into Wednesday, and considering we only got another day and a half here, I won't actually be surprised if we pump back up to 4250 tomorrow and then sell back down into the Fed and Powell and see what he comes up with. Potentially, again, if everything plays out, you're going to want digestion. You're going to get an initial move. Hopefully that the move in the digestion breaks us out of this channel. Again, if it does break us out of this channel, doesn't mean we're just going to run. We still have the Russia-Ukraine stuff and the possibility of China and what they are essentially doing. So that's always going to be a wild card. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But nonetheless, I think we continue to float here for the next day and a half, and then either break down or we break up. If we continue to break down, I think we're going to need more of a catalyst to keep selling off. I think ultimately we might just play a bigger range. Wouldn't surprise me. Continue to chop. Again, there's still a lot of money in the system, even though there's inflation, which is going to take a while to remove that, especially with the unforeseen events of Russia and Ukraine. So we have to see. The market can still push up. You have to be mindful of that. Just because there's bad news in the whole system, and they might have bad earnings. But with that being said, we're looking to see if this will break tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but on Wednesday. That's the key point there. Bitcoin still holding extremely well. It actually looks like it's getting ready to break out here out of this wedge. Again, probably go revisit that 4,300 mark. Again, I think it's going to be the year for crypto. I don't think you should be sleeping on crypto. You know, a lot of people think that crypto was just kind of a fad, but with the mass adoption, especially when you got big countries like China, Russia, and now the U.S. trying to play catch up on the crypto space, this is only going to push this and keep this sustainable and not allow this to fluctuate as much. Yeah, these are still big volatile moves. It's still in its infancy. But you have to realize that I think we're starting to get more stable ground in crypto, and especially if the U.S. decides to have some sort of stable coin. So that's why I sit on crypto. Now this week, again, you want to be watching, like I always point out, you want to be watching the leaders. Tesla sold off hard, especially with the China news. That could really affect them. So I'm really kind of watching this 723 mark and the 698 mark. I want to see if we do hit that bottom again. If we do break that, we're going to definitely go lower than that. Again, it could get gap down pretty far if it does break that. But that's what I'm watching there. And if we do get some gas, again, you got this daily trend line we need to break. Again, I won't be surprised if we kind of can keep trickling down until next earnings. Because people are going to want to see how the supply chain is being affected with the Russia and Ukraine. Again, you have all these high estimates, and now you got huge strain on the supply chain that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. And all these estimates, people just started coming out of the pandemic and starting doing very well. Now this is pretty much reset all that. Again, you're going to see some really bad earnings, I think, coming up. Again, some are still going to surprise. Some can adjust with what's going on. Others cannot. This is why it's good to stay with industry leaders moving forward, at least until the market, once the Russia-Ukraine things settle, once we start getting some rate raises in there and the market starts to sell a little bit better, then we'll start seeing some things go back in a positive manner. But Tesla, again, looking still looking pretty bad. Like I said, the news, we have to really watch the news with China because it's really going to affect what happens with Tesla and the chips. Apple got that news that one of the factories has been seized in China. So it started selling off, broke a key support, back tested it and started selling. This potentially could drop pretty far here. We got some level here, essentially around that 49.60 mark for support, which we kind of bounced already. And then I got another level here at that 140 mark. So Apple can continue to sell, especially with any bad news about chips, especially being it was the safe haven for the longest time. And now, considering what the news we got today with China, this is going to be an issue moving forward. So again, we won't really see how much devastation it's going to cause until we get the next earnings. Google, another big one, another wedge break, or possible wedge break here. I think this will last 2 more days where we play this tight range. Since you're looking at the 2600 mark to the 2500 mark, so that's a pretty big move right there in between. But I think again tomorrow we might get a pump and then a dump on Wednesday, and then we'll determine if that's going to break us up or down going in. So you're really watching that again at 2500 mark. You don't want to break that. If it does break that, it's going to continue to sell pretty hard. Again, big support. You're going to get a massive flush if it does break, and then you got to the upside. You got some good levels here, and then you have the split coming in July. So again, it's just getting through this hot mess. Once we get through this hot mess, a lot of these you're going to want to start buying, in my opinion, dollar cost averaging, because we don't know how long this is going to last. Again, I wouldn't start buying heavily in any of these stocks. Again, it has to be one you have very strong conviction in, and one you are looking 5 to 10 years out. You're not looking over the next week. You're not looking over the next couple weeks. You are looking much further down the road. Again, that's why it is an investment and not you're not swing trading or doing any kind of trading. So being said, LA Google, USPT, this one's really starting to sink pretty hard. We got this last strong support, that 80.66 mark. And then your next level is down to 65. So you really want to be careful with this. If we do break this 78 level, you got a pretty harsh dive down to 66. So this might actually be a really good short if we do break that 78 mark. Again, I don't know if this is going to happen tomorrow. It could possibly happen sometime later this week, but I think you really want to keep an eye on that one if it does break. And again, I want to keep an eye on the ones that I think are going to do well in the future. Chips, I do love chips, but with everything going on with China, you really have to be careful. Chips could get crushed. Yes, the tech will come down if chips get crushed, but chips will definitely take the mass of the blow. So you definitely got to be careful with that. Coin is one I'm kind of watching, even though everything going on, it's still going to continue to sell. Everything is selling. So even things that would stick are not sticking. So you have to be mindful of that. But I do like the wedges going on here. Again, I can see a pop. A lot of stuff is at that bottom channel. I can see a pop up to there. So it could be a good one to watch tomorrow. See if we get a pop back on that. See if we get a pop on Bitcoin overnight. Just with everything going on, again, trying to combat inflation, I think could be a strong possibility. I did call out Amazon this morning. It did flush pretty hard, but now for me at this point, it's kind of in that land. You don't really want to play it either way. It needs to either break way down or way up for me to take a position on that. Kind of same with Shop. Shop needs to either break way down or way up, but definitely what I want to watch, especially if we turn, if there's any kind of ceasefire. Shop is kind of one of the ones you want to get into. I think, in my opinion, it does very well. I'm not really certain why it's just continuing to sell. I think people would rather put their money in something like a Tesla or an Apple, possibly even Google, as opposed to Shop. Even Amazon's kind of iffy at this point, especially with so much supply constraint. Well, like I said, Shop could be good, but we have to see how that plays out. As far as like anything else, I talked about Cat a little bit. Cat really didn't have a pullback. It's way too high, in my opinion. Another big one to watch for tomorrow is Moderna, especially with all the lockdowns that are going on. If I can find it here. With all the lockdowns that are going on in China, there was a nice pump on this yesterday or this morning. I want to see if we can hold this 147 tomorrow. We got to pop over it. We want to see if we can actually hold it. If it does hold over it tomorrow, you might be able to get another nice pop out of this going into tomorrow. If it stays flat, this thing might actually pop overnight. But you got this 165 level, essentially your target, and you get this bottom zone. So you got the 147, which looks like a tag right before close. This could potentially pump again tomorrow. It could continue to pump based off what's going on in China. But definitely another one to keep on watch. But that's what I got so far. Again, you got to keep it light, nimble, be mindful of what's going on. News can change everything very dramatically, so you have to be careful. There's still strength in the market, so I wouldn't say just go and start shorting whatever, because things could potentially blow up. It's even this morning, Amazon and Tesla they went down almost 40 points, and they both popped and started pushing hard, and then all of a sudden they just died. So you have to be very careful in this market. Wait for the move and then react after the move, as opposed to waiting for something like this that's like chopping, sitting in the middle, take a position, and then you get wicks on both sides, and you essentially get torn up if you're in a contract, or even if you're in shares and get tagged out with those wicks down. So I will see you guys next time.